In our society, a man who wears many hats is a metaphor for someone who performs many roles. For me, it means someone who knows many things, who samples from the variety of life and explores the world, seeking to understand, listen, enjoy, and create. One of these characters is my friend Steve. I met Steve when I was a kid in the 80s, delivering papers and mowing lawns. I'm certain I asked a million questions, since he was cool enough to listen and chat with a neighborhood kid. I learned the guy was in a band, had a record store, and had a hat collection that earned my envy, as I too was, and still am, an avid hat collector. Ironically, when I asked my brother if he remembered Steve, he said, "Yeah, he's the guy with all the hats." Steve and I have stayed in touch for decades. I've observed the evolution of his literal and figurative hats. I've seen the entertainer, the record store and club operator, the educator, and the accomplished visual artist. I present Steven Jay Athanas, the guy with all the hats.
Yes. It started early. My first band was in, well, I guess before the band started, I was always attracted to art. The first character I ever drew was Popeye the Sailor. He was my hero, and my mom was very proud because we would eat spinach just because of that one-eyed sailor. So he was the first person I drew, and it went on from there, monsters, and so the art was what started it. But then also, simultaneously, my mom, again, an integral figure in my development or underdevelopment, depending on who you ask, was she turned me on to rock and roll. She used to buy me 45s and we lived in the Colony on St. Bernard, and which is now ProMedica. But there was a Colony theater, and they used to have Elvis films there, and she would take us. And my brother Dave was still in diapers, and he would just take off, and we could always tell where he was at because we would see people rise because he'd be crawling under the seats, and there's a kid under my seat. And then in addition, my father's father, owned a Greasy Spoon restaurant over on Seacorn, Sylvania, where I think it's a Bible book store and a Baskin and Robbins, Seacorn, Sylvania. It was called the Unique Grill, and he had a jukebox in there. So he had a guy who would come in and change the records every once in a while, and the guy who did that had no use for the records that he took out. So my uncle, my dad's brother, and I would fight over who got the 45s. And so, I had one of those little box record players with a speaker and the grill in the front. And my brother Dave and I would at times get up on our beds, and he would have a tennis racket and I would have a broom, and he would be Ricky Nelson and I would be Elvis Presley. And we'd lip sync to the records. So that was the beginning. I guess fast forward to middle school, and I got my first band. My brother Dave was the guitar player. I tried to be the guitar player, and it never took. Later, I learned how to play it a little bit. So Dave was the guitar player. Walt Churchill III of Churchill Supermarkets, he was our bass player. And we had a drummer by the name of Craig Paniff. Both Walt and Craig have since passed. And that first band was called Jello. We just went to the cupboard, which is a recurring theme, by the way, as you'll find out. And we'd play the dances at schools, and once we played Sports Arena Battle of the Bands. We played they used to have a Battle of the Bands at LaSalle's, which was at Westgate, and I think we came in second. We lost to Hair Incorporated, which was a great band, by the way. So that went, and then Walt and Craig and my brother, in their infinite wisdom, decided to kick me out of the band. Trios were the thing. It was Cream, Blue Cheer. It was the three pieces, you know. So they booted me, and everything happens for a reason. So I picked up the guitar at that point, an acoustic guitar, and started figuring out some stuff, and went the acoustic route. Got a couple of friends of mine, got a band together in high school, and nothing to write home about. But that lasted through high school. I went to college and was going to get a degree in what they called at the time commercial art, which is now graphic design. I was going to do advertising, papers and magazines and stuff. Got through 1 year of college. Somebody said, "Hey, you want to start a rock band?" Pew, I'm out of there. So I got together with some people. We started a blues band. It was called Strongheart. I think we had like 6 people. It was a good-sized band. And we played around a while, started writing a couple things, and then that splintered off. A couple people left to do other projects, and a few of us, myself, Rob Fetters, and I think Niswanger came later, but we had a bass player, and we decided to form a band. We got a female singer. At the time, we had a sax player and a keyboard player, and we called it, well, we were Strongheart for a while, but again, we went through the cupboard, the kitchen cupboard, and we came up with the Raisin Band. And so that band was really the real start of my music. We took that thing on the road. We after a while, we got somebody to represent us, and we would start in Toledo, play a few months in Toledo, and then work our way down to Pensacola, Florida. We'd shoot off to the Carolinas and Kentucky and Tennessee, play Pensacola, and then work our way back up, same route. Come back to town, play in town for a few months, repeat. Wash, lather, repeat. And things started happening. Notoriety and some dough, not a lot of dough, but man, I was in my 20s at the time. There are stories that I'm still asking forgiveness for, things I did on the road. So the Raisin Band, we were not only getting creative musically, but yeah, there was just a lot of buffoonery and lots of wild stuff. That took me until I think late 70s, 80s. And then I moved to New York City under the premise of achieving fame and notoriety in the Big Apple. But in truth, it was because of a woman. I fell in love with a woman. So I ended up waiting on tables, and you know, I joined a band for about 2 minutes. That didn't work. Came back to Toledo, called my brother up again, and got together with my brother Dave and then my brother Mick, who then played bass. And then we got together with Chris Arducer, who recently passed, very sad, and Tom Toth, and we called ourselves The Best. This was right at the peak of the new wave, not new age, but new wave. Costello, Clash, XTC, all those really rockin' bands. Excuse me. So we did that stuff, and we started writing more earnestly, and we put out a single. It was two 45s, 4 songs. What was it? 3 of them were my songs. 1 was a cover of an NRBQ song. So things, you know, it was still big fish, small pond kind of thing. We wanted to do more. People had commitments. People had day jobs. So nobody was really ready, willing, and able to hit the road in earnest to seek this out, which we needed to do. There was no false aspirations that we knew that we'd have to get out of town in order to get to the next level. it was very rare, nil, that anybody made it from Toledo, Ohio. So what are you going to do? So the best morphed into a couple other bands, which was Wet Shavers.
Here they come, the Wet Shavers.
Calling Abby, answer the phone. It's Friday night and for once I'm alone. I'm lonely, that's the problem, and I need some advice right away. You never would guess what silently my problem is this.
PLZ, and then that turned into Loved by Millions, which is a band that I'm currently working with to do a reunion. We lost our original bass player last fall, so we're going to do a tribute to him coming up.
So let's bring the band on. Please welcome Loved by Millions.
That was looking at the time when the Blues Brothers and that shuffle thing, swing music was happening, and so I started getting interested in that, and we did a one-off at one of the Rally by the Rivers downtown, and we had a 4-piece horn section. This was I was still doing Love by Millions, but this was just a one-off. Had a 4-piece horn section, guitar, bass, drums, keys, and we called ourselves Billy Rubin and his Ace Cargo with the Cobra Twist horns. Billy Rubin is a disease that some children are born with, nothing fatal, which my son had, Michael, so that's where I got Billy Rubin. Ace Cargo was a play on snail food, and the Cobra Twist horns, of course, was Bobo Brazil, the wrestler. He used to have one of his moves was called the Cobra Twist. So we did one Rally by the River. Right at the end of the gig, we all looked at each other and said, "Shit, this is too good to stop." So we decided. My brother was a guitar player. We made a few changes. Larry Gold came in on guitar. We we did that, and it morphed into the Homewreckers. And the Homewreckers, I always had a thing. I always didn't want my bands to last longer than 2 or 3 years. I always wanted to mix it up, switch personnel so that I could get a fresh sound and fresh outlook, etc. That was thrown to the wind with the Homewreckers. The Homewreckers lasted 23 years, I believe it was. We became the shit. And we had, mind you, we had 8 mouths in the band to feed. But there was at one point, one summer, where each band member was taking home $1,800 a week. Now that meant that we were working our asses off. We'd play some afternoon gig, do a wedding, then we'd go to a club. But still, that money became known in Toledo amongst Toledo musicians as homewrecker money. That's a point of pride with me. And then what happened after that? Well, I kind of got bored again and started these little offshoot bands, the Ogres, Chinese Purple. But the one band, Chinese Purple, it was one of those eclectic bands. We were my brother, myself on guitar. My brother was playing guitar and mandolin. Joel Hazard was playing bass and keyboards. Mike Peters was playing dobro and pedal steel and some guitar, and Chuck was playing drums, and we were going for the gusto at the time. There was an attitude of this is really cool. We're doing some cool music, and so we did a few of my songs, and one of them was called "When the Cold Winds Blowed," and this was right when NPR started their Tiny Desk concerts, and so we said, let's do it. So right in this room here, we took that little toy piano, put it over there as our tiny desk, and took a few liberties. It wasn't a desk, and we did a recording of a video of "When the Cold Winds Blowed," and it turned out pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. It was a pretty good song, if I do say so myself, and Mike Malone did the recording of it, so it turned out pretty good.
Tiny Piano Productions presents Chinese Purple, When the Cold Wind Blows.
The cold winds blowed, 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 the cold winds blowed. That's when the cold winds blow. The woman I loved done left me cold, left me cold, left me cold. The woman I loved done left me cold, right when the cold winds blow. I called on Jesus, but he never showed. He never showed. He never showed. I called on Jesus, but he never showed.
There was another one in there, and they were more eclectic. Oh, the Coosters. The Coosters was one of my faves. They were more eclectic. Like the Coosters lineup, musician lineup, was me on guitar, Dick Lang, R.I.P., on guitar, Larry Reinstein on mandolin. We had a percussionist, and we had Dave Sager, who was the bottom. He played upright bass, he played electric bass, he played didgeridoo, and all kind. Oh, and tuba. That was the big thing. He played tuba for the bass end, and it was astounding. I'd been listening to Taj Mahal, and Taj Mahal put out a live album, and he had a 3-piece tuba section. That fucking band kicked ass. So then it was, I just what happened, honestly, is I was always I didn't really fool myself about who I was on stage, and I knew that I wasn't really a great singer per se, but what I lacked in vocal capabilities, I made up for in being the fool, jumping around, walking the bar, bringing people up on stage. The Homewreckers had a nickname as the world's first karaoke band. But then I just started. It just started getting. There was an element of rote. It just seemed like we were going through the motions. The emotions weren't there. So I started getting back into my art. I got an art degree from UT. I taught for a while, and then decided that's about it. So that's the musical aspect of it. Today, it's all a crapshoot. I don't know what drove me. My father was rather dismayed of the choices that I made career-wise. Well, he didn't know the artist thing. He's since passed. But, becoming a bar band singer was not, get a real job, Steve. Come on. Those cliched lines. Get a real job. And I ignored him. I probably should have paid more attention. Although I will pat myself on the back. I did get a teaching degree and taught for a few years, but that didn't pan out too well either. It all has to be taken with a grain of salt, but it seems like I'm doing better. I'm getting more acceptance. I've got a couple cool things in the pike, up the pike, or whatever the term is. If I may toot my own horn, University Press at University of Toledo are talking about and going to release a book of my drawings and my poems. I do a two-dimensional work and three-dimensional work. The two-dimensional work, obviously, is what they're interested in for the book. I will do a silly painting of something and then accompany it with a silly poem. And it's a little bit like Edward Lear. It's a little bit like Lewis Carroll. A little bit like John Lennon. So it's to coin the term, it's nonsense poetry with an accompanying painting. So the book is forthcoming, God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'm also doing a show. The Carlson Library at the University of Toledo has just opened up a new gallery space in the library, and I've been asked to do a show there in August of 24. So I'm very excited about that, doing new work for that. I just finished a show at Flatlanders Gallery in Blissfield, Michigan. And while I was up there, the owner, Ken Thompson, great guy, asked if I would like to be curator of the gallery. And what that entails is finding artists, going and checking their work out, helping them to select the work that's best for the gallery, and then getting the show hung and arranging the opening reception. Very excited about that. That'll look good on the resume, as they say. I also show regularly at Hudson Gallery in Sylvania. Scott and Barbara have been really good to me over the years. You know, I'm not fooling myself. My work is a little off kilter. It's not the norm that you see in Hudson Gallery. And I'm not necessarily bragging about that, because whatever, I am what I am, as Popeye, my hero, said. And so, but Scott and Barbara, in spite of themselves sometimes, will allow me to show pieces in there. One of my favorite all-time shows, if not the most favorite art show that I did, was at Hudson Gallery. And it was right when I started writing the poems and doing the paintings with them. And poor Barb and Scott, I think they always knew that they weren't going to sell any of those pieces because they were too weird, man. Brendel Spatzel, the crustacean boy. There was a piece I did about how my girlfriend liked to sniff my head. There was the one about a chicken juggler who juggled chickens. It was just weird shit. And, you know, that clientele at Hudson's, again, they're looking for something a bit more refined, shall we say. Nevertheless, Scott and Barb, God love them, turned their gallery into a carnival. Scott made a stand for me to stand on as a barker, as a circus barker. Step right up, come and see the bearded lady. And then he made these two mock canvas red and white striped panels to look like a circus tent. And we've got a popcorn machine to add. We wanted to assault all of the senses. We wanted the smell of popcorn. I put together a playlist of calliope music. You'd be surprised how much of that shit there is. And it was called Evan St. Jasthane's Astounding Sideshow. Evan St. Jasthane was my Sgt. Pepper alter ego, but it was also taking the letters from my name, Steven Jay Athanas, and rearranging them into Evan St. Jasthane. I still want to return to that someday. I think there's still some milking left on that cow. But it was just glorious. I got I got a bullhorn. I got a derby. I bought this insanely tasteless jacket, paisley jacket, and walked into the gallery. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show. And it was just wonderful. Great show. So, and still just making a lot of work over here on the second floor. I have a gallery where I do my three-dimensional work, the mobiles and stuff like that. But just keep them busy, and please know that I'm not making a shitload of money. I still have to have some semblance of a day job to not only keep dog food in the bowl for her, but also to tell Dad, "Hey, Dad, I'm okay," you know. And there are parallels between being the bar band musician / singer / frontman / clown and the stuff that I'm doing today. In particular, the poems that I incorporate into a lot of my work. It's happened more than one time where I'll be writing this stuff down, and you know, thinking, well, what if I put music behind it? You know, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. As a matter of fact, there is one piece that that I did a painting and wrote the poem on the page, and it's called Bed, and it's the only one I've done this for, but it's it is a song, and it's a song that was performed by the Coosters. I'm very proud of that one too. So yeah, there's definitely parallels between then and now, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, there are definite parallels and recognitions of things from the past. I mean, how can there not be? It's a consistent life. I've not had a lobotomy yet or bumped my head and amnesia. So yeah, I draw from everything that's happened to me. I try to, yeah. But the other aspect of it though is it's so much fun to make up shit. You know, make up stories. I mean, Shel Silverstein, you know, another one of my heroes. I have one character whom I did a painting for. Well, there's more than one, but this one comes to mind to me. His name was, the piece is called I'm paraphrasing here, The Sad and Horrifying Tale of Brendel Spätzle. And I made that name up. I don't know where the hell it came from. But it's a story about a guy whose mom worked at Red Lobster. And most of the story is not in the poem. If you ask me, I'll tell you where the story came from, but you wouldn't know this. But the story is that the mom worked at Red Lobster, had sex with her boss back in the kitchen, and 9 months later, she gave birth to a boy who was part crustacean, part lobster. So he feels, you know, oppressed and beaten down, and so he gets some money together and gets a bike, and he rides to Hollywood to tell his story and fails miserably at it. And then at the end of the story, he jumps into a pot of boiling water. The Sad and Terrifying Tale of Brendel Spätzle. One of the pieces I did is it morphed into something very different than it originated as. It originally started as a story of the Raisins, primarily the Raisins, but all that debauchery and being bad boys in the 60s and 70s, which we were very good at. So it was a tale of a band, not a famous band because we never really achieved fame, but it was of that caliber of band that went on the road and worked, you know, nightclubs and stuff like that. That was it. That was what that piece was. Then we lost two friends, two guys that had played in the bands. Ed Wells, who was a bass player, a guitar player. He had a studio in Waterville where he recorded pretty much gratis. It's always been, I mean, I was very thankful for that. Recorded my first CD, which was called We Are Our Own Parade. And then the other person that passed was Chris Arducer, who was just this fucking maniac on drums. It's just, I listen to tapes now, and the stuff he does on drums is just astounding. So, so I went back to this piece, revisited it, changed a few of the verses, another parallel to music, changed a few of the verses and made it a tribute to Ed and Chris. And that's how that piece came about.
Some self-portraiture going on in some of your pieces, for sure.
Yes, self-portraiture. I mean, it's. I've got an ego, so yeah, I'll integrate some images of myself. I've always been a big admirer of. There are other directors, but Hitchcock, who would always put himself in his films. I thought, that's really cool. I really like that. Not to be center, camera on me exclusively, giving some soliloquy or anything, but just like walking across the street. There are a few of my pieces where you'll find images of myself in it, and there's also a grand self-portrait of me. I can't believe I did this, of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, the guy in the circle, and I did a very realistic rendition. I took pictures of myself and did a very realistic rendition. I don't know who the hell would want to hang it in their house. That's probably why I still have it. But yeah, it's another factor of just goofing about and playing with people. And I think if I were to draw where it began, I think what happened, I was, and I'm still doing this, I was substitute teaching at various schools across Toledo. And rarely when you substitute, I'm sure you know this, rarely will you substitute in your field of expertise, which was for me having an art education degree. They'll throw you where they need you. Spanish, physics, phys ed, wherever they need you, that's where you're going to go. And so what I found was, for better or worse, when you get me as a sub, it's probably going to be a study hall. And so to keep myself from not going crazy, I started bringing a sketch pad with me and just literally putting pencil to paper and seeing what happens, moving the pencil. And so there's a whole shelf of sketchbooks behind me. So in doing that, if it was something that I felt I could develop, I would. So there would be a caricature of somebody or something like that, or a weird morphed animal, or any number of things, or Brendel Spatzel, that came about that way. So in that case, I guess the image would come first. On the other hand, with living in the 21st century as we do, if I'm driving down the street and I'll have my phone with me and I get some sort of line in my head, sometimes I'll pull over, sometimes I'll just keep going, and make a note of it and then reference back to it, and that may blossom into one of the poems, and then the drawing will come afterwards. So it happens both ways. I'm working right now on a piece, hopefully for the Carlson Library Show, and I was stumped all week substituting. I knew what I want. I wanted to do a piece called Life After Life, after having spent 7 decades on this planet, we have to think about these things. And I was reading a book called Life After Life, which was about this doctor who recorded like 150 people's experiences with death, where they would be declared dead on the table and then come back to life and talk about their experience. So I sort of wanted to write about that a little bit, but just was like having a hard time. So yesterday I'm sitting here having my coffee and just came out. And, you know, I had to tweak it and fine tune it. But so sometimes sometimes, as I've said before, my muse will go on vacation. My inspiration decides to go to Florida for a few days or something and leaves me here. What am I going to do? But invariably she'll come back and we'll continue our merry way.
Want to go there or do? Or
I don't have a lot to say. I will comment on it.
Okay.
I feel that the term art career is pretty much an oxymoron. It's like oil and water. It's, you know, if you are to find a career in art, and again, I don't have the experience to speak unequivocally, but you're kind of whoring yourself. You're invariably not doing what you want to actually do. You know, you're feeding another taskmaster. So, yeah, art careers, and especially in this time that we live in, it's and Hudson's will tell me this too, is the art market is way off. It's just people aren't buying. And the thing that's even more that pisses me off even more is they'll go into Hudson's or any gallery, I'm sure, and say, well, I need something to go to match my couch, above my couch. Fuck that. That's not what art is. And they'll try. My friend Richard Reed, who's one of the best painters in this town, he's told me that story many a time where people will say, well, I have a space above my fireplace. Good. Go to Target or go to Michael's. But, you know, if something works, fine. But I'm not going to try and kowtow to your environment at home, whatever. So art career is it's not a term that holds a lot of water. Sad but true. The scene, though there are struggles, I mean, it's sad that there's so few galleries in this town, actually. But the scene, even though there's trouble with the selling of art, there are people that want to be involved, that want to make art, and it's very apparent with Toledo School for the Arts is kicking ass. The murals are popping up all over the buildings around town, and so there's a good scene here, and it's thriving, and there's good work being made. I myself kind of, at this point anyway, I'm kind of hermited, if that's a word, from the scene, because I don't know why exactly, but I figure my lack of immersion keeps me fresh, keeps the ideas flowing in my head, and keeps the ideas original without borrowing too much of what's going on. Although, as my college professor told me, there's nothing original in this world of art anymore. Nothing. Anything you do, it's already been done in one way or another. So he always said, just make sure you steal it good and make it your own. I took that with me.
I love you like a bird loves twigs. I love you like my granny loves figs. Do you love me like a fly loves shit? If you do, baby, this is it. Come on. I love you like a cow loves grass. I love you like a sailor loves a pass. Do you love me like Picasso loves art? If you do, baby, that's a start. Come on. Come on. Come on.
bad boys. Where's the camera? Do not repeat. Do not listen to do not do what I say. Do as I say, not.